Thank you, Croydon, for joining us today on the Brown Dad. We've got an exciting episode for you folks, and we've got a mortgage specialist, a musician, and a published author, but more importantly, a dad and a brown dad at that. Croydon, please tell our viewers something about yourself.
Thanks, Raina. First off, thanks for having me on the podcast. It's an honor to be here, and the work that you're doing is important. So it's my privilege to speak with you today.
Thank
In
you.
terms of what I'm up to these days, it's a snapshot in time because, as you know, with the quantum universe, things can change, right?
Right,
We've had these discussions before. They can get pretty exponential.
right,
So, job-wise, I work in the finance industry as a mortgage broker. I've been doing
right.
that for a number of years now. And in terms of passion, I host two podcasts. So I've got one of them called The Focal Thought, which is on YouTube.
Very
That's
nice.
where I interview guests. And the
We're
other
gonna
one is
have a link for that in our in the bottom for
okay,
the
awesome.
viewers as well.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. The other one is called Stevenson's Mind. So that is just it's another podcast. It's on Anchor. But that's just me. It's a 20-minute episode set, and I publish it bi-weekly. There's no guests on that, so it's a different format.
Very nice.
Other than that, in a past life, I was a musician. I spent about maybe 6-7 years in performance and in education as well. And
Very
that's
nice.
brought me up to present time, and let's see what the future holds.
Yeah. And you are also a proud father of may I ask how many children?
So two of them,
Two.
twins.
Wow. Very nice. Very nice. And how old if you're comfortable with sharing that?
Yeah, so they're twins. They're going to be 4 in July.
Wow. Wow. Handful, no?
Yeah, handful.
Delightful handfulness. That's what the way I like to look at it. Now,
Sounds
Gordon,
good.
thank you, and thank you for that lovely introduction, and thank you for taking us on that lovely path of where it is that you are right now. We'd like to tell the viewers a little bit about where you've come from, because part of this journey of sharing and giving people a sense of empowerment, and that's what we do at the Brown Dad, is giving people that sense of ability to understand where people come from and what their challenges are. So, would you like to share? Because obviously, you are now in a foreign land in Canada, and you have come here as an immigrant, right?
Yeah.
That being said, what age did you come here, and where did you come from?
So I would say, now, I'm considering this life. If you believe in the tradition of past lives, I'm not going to go that far back,
Right,
but we'll keep it to this life. So I was born in India, in Calcutta.
right,
We're actually from a place called Goa, which is the Los Angeles of India, I call it, right? It's the
right,
beach
right,
town, right? It's
right,
got some influence from the Portuguese.
right,
And my mom's side grew up in Calcutta. My dad's side grew up in Bombay, and both were
right,
from Goa.
right.
They actually immigrated to Dubai first.
Wow.
So that's why I'm sort of like a double immigrant, right? Uh,
Right,
and Dubai is the old Dubai. It's not as we know it now. It was a
right,
small town. The tallest building was 33 floors.
right,
We came to Canada in the early 90s, so 92. So I
right,
came looking at high school. I came into the grade 11,
right.
and then actually went to Montreal to live and study for a couple of years. So I guess
Wow.
you can call that a technical immigration to a sister province.
Yeah,
And and that's I'm now in Toronto, and
yeah.
in fact within Toronto, I've lived in the suburb of Scarborough. I've
Hmm.
lived in the core, the downtown area, and
Hmm.
now currently in the Durham region, which is, I guess, 45 minutes east of the
Oh,
downtown.
yeah. Yeah. That's quite a journey. I mean, you've taken quite a bit of trips around the world, obviously coming all the way back from India. Have you ever traveled back to India then, as part of that going back and seeing what's back home, so to speak?
The last time we went was 2008, so I haven't been back since.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. And Dubai, how about that?
Dubai, not since I left, so I'm talking,
Uh-huh.
early 90s.
Nice, nice. Nice. And that's quite an interesting it's quite an interesting space where you've come from, because obviously, coming from a place where, as you said, Dubai, not the Dubai we know today, it's this little village and quaint little village that it was. And as busy as it was, coming from there to a completely different type of culture, how did you feel? What were your challenges coming into that space?
I guess in some way, I was sort of assimilated because, I mentioned Goa was, influenced by the Portuguese. So we actually
Right,
grew up with, the Western culture to some
right,
extent. In terms
right,
of the food, there's a lot of, hybrid fusion going on with the cuisine. A lot of the
right,
national Goan dishes have the influence, from the Portuguese culture.
right,
Music, so being a musician, I actually studied from, Chris Berry,
right,
Glenn Berry, who are, a famous family in Dubai who started a
right,
music school, I believe in the late 70s, I think 76. And I think they're
right.
celebrating their 40th anniversary this year.
Yes, yes,
So a lot of
they
their
did.
music, yeah, they learned from, the different musicians from the West. So
Yeah,
I'd say, food wise, music wise, and then even movie wise, right? Like
right,
we weren't like getting Hollywood releases when it came
right,
out. There was a bit of a
right,
lag back then. It's not
right.
like now, right? Everyone's caught up, at the speed of
Now
release.
you have the internet too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That we didn't have the internet back then, right? Like pre-phones, pre-internet.
Yes.
Fax machine was something to marvel at, right? Back in the day.
Right. Right. Right.
So, we've always had some sort of experience with the Western culture. So
Right.
coming to Canada, I had that exposure. So that part was okay. It was good to leverage off.
Right.
You just have to get used to, being in a different country, which is normal anywhere, a different
Right.
system, different sort of, government, different politics, different
Right.
culture that way. But I was lucky enough to have that base. And it's funny because, I'm very different from someone who's born and brought up in one place, right? They've got that
Right.
sense of, foundation of, patriarchy, things like that,
Right. Right.
patriotism. But
Right.
for me, I would go to India and people
Right.
would say, hey, well, you're from Dubai. I'd go to Dubai. People would say, no, hey, you're from India, right?
Right.
And then you come to Canada and they're like, which one are you, India or Dubai, right?
Right. 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 I think that's the mark of a proud Canadian, where they can just say, I'm Canadian, right?
That's it, yeah.
At the end of it. No, that's definitely very interesting, very, very interesting for our viewers to have that different perspective, and definitely, I mean, coming from a sense of stability around, that exposure and not having that cultural shock definitely makes that assimilation a little easier to work with. Now, changing gears a little bit, you definitely then decide to move from Scarborough, leaving your and then coming in as an immigrant brown child, and telling your parents, hey, I'm going to move away from the immediate family to pursue something further. How was that perceived at home?
They were okay with it, right? I mean,
Right.
the reason I moved to Montreal was to study journalism.
Ah, okay.
In Toronto, I actually got my music school, certificate. I studied jazz music, composition, performance, and arranging at the Humber
Oh,
Music
very nice.
College. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
actually worked in music for a number of years, and then I wanted to check out journalism and check out a different place, right?
Hmm.
A good friend of mine who actually, was in Dubai in elementary school. He had actually gone and set up in Montreal. So he said, "Why don't you
Right.
come to Montreal? It's not that far off. It's a
Right.
different culture. You can utilize school to get to know the city and, give yourself sort of like a refreshing space to try something new." Because I
Right.
was in a routine in Toronto, right?
Right.
So when I told my folks, they were actually okay with it because, it was school, right? So they
Right.
saw the value with that.
Right. Right. Definitely. And Montreal is a little different in the sense that, again, the language, there is a second language over there, which is French. Do you speak French?
I would actually, yeah, I mean, I'd say the first language is French there, right? And then
Right. Right. Right.
technically considered
Right.
a
Sorry.
bilingual city,
Right.
but, they're very sort of heavily influenced, with the French language, the culture.
Yes. Yes.
And I didn't learn French because I spent a short amount of time there.
Hmm.
And in
Hmm.
fact, when I went to Montreal, a lot of my friends there wanted me to teach them Scarborough English, right? Because Scarborough is famous for its urban slang, and
Right. Right.
they found it quite entertaining. So it was actually the other way around. I ended up teaching them, Scarborough slang.
Do you have any words for our viewers so that they can get some Scarborough slang as well?
Oh, it's a mix from all the urban cultures, right? So something like, yo guy, right?
Yeah.
You say that just to be, very friendly with someone. But
Or fish curry, right?
in Montreal, they actually say gi, right? So they'd be saying
Right.
yogi.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Now, just coming back to the conversation that you were talking about, talking to your folks, just sourcing that information. How, obviously, you grew up, your dad was was he very active in your life, or how was that relationship?
Yeah, he was. I mean, it was a different sort of archetype than my mom, right?
Right,
You have to remember, like, like with your movement, you're calling it brown dad, which is good. It's a good way to sort of brand and market it and start with
right,
a certain demographic. But
right,
the movement you're trying to do appeals to all dads, right, on a baseline.
right.
And we have to
Definitely.
think, right, like with a culture where, you're saying that, dads, aren't as involved with their kids, right? It's not that they
Right,
don't want to be. If we
right.
look at years and generations of what's happening, you've
Hmm.
got people where, the male in the family is considered, the breadwinner. I mean,
Correct.
that's changed now, drastically. But,
Yeah.
for those times then, they were actually going out and working.
Right,
Whereas, the moms, they were the ones who were the homemakers, right?
right,
Uh, so because of that reason, I don't think, father figures got to spend a lot of time, with their children because they were out
right,
working.
right.
And then when they
And it was
come
no
back,
choice, out of no choice, so to speak, right?
exactly, because they had to
Right.
work, right? And then when they
Correct.
came back, they didn't know what to do with the kids because they missed out on how to relate to the kids, right? While they're growing up.
Correct.
They just
Correct.
expected to come home and have a conversation with the kids, which is not possible, right?
Right.
And then you've got that, the mom sort of backing it up and,
Right.
but for myself and with my dad, he was involved. He wasn't involved like a sitcom father, right? Like lovey-dovey
Hmm.
kind of thing, right?
Hmm.
That's a little bit exaggerated, I think, in the movies.
Hmm.
Um, but he was there. I mean, we got our first game system, because he brought one home, right? We've got
Right.
our first computer, our home computer, because he bought one home, right?
Right.
He was active in taking us to parks and barbecues and picnics. And
Right.
I remember in being in Dubai, like I got a chance to go to my first basketball game because of him, right? The Harlem
Right.
Globetrotters come to town.
Right. Wow. Very
Yeah,
nice.
yeah,
Very
and he
nice.
came home and surprised me with tickets for that. My first bike was because of him, right? So
Right.
those are a
Right.
lot of good things that he influenced me. Whereas my mom, like she worked part-time as well in
Right.
Dubai.
Right.
And but her hours were less in terms of working, so she was able to nurture and care for us
Correct.
all through
Because
the
of the
day.
time, obviously, I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and it's a definitely a very valid point, and it's definitely something we do want to bring to light, to say that this dynamic of having to provide is partly is what causes this time imbalance, and that's kind of what causes this ability for the nurture space being a little different. Obviously, the male interaction is a little different, but regardless of that, that commitment to being able to provide, which was there prior, which maybe is a little sourced differently now, is where that time constraint came from. Very interesting, and thank you for sharing that. So, how does that impact you as a dad then? What does that then relate? What do you take away from that to then incorporate into your dadliness, so to speak?
You know what? I've got a philosophy on parenting that's very organic, and it's just like the universe is ever expanding and contracting. So is my philosophy, right?
Right,
I'm sort of from the mindset that I don't have all the answers, but I'm
right.
learning as we go along. And I think I'll probably figure it out by the time the kids leave the house, right? Yeah, ironic that's always the case.
Yeah,
But I made a sort of a promise to myself that when I had the kids, that I would do the very best, to sort of nurture them, provide for them, but
right,
that before even teaching them, I would actually teach myself first, because I think uh, to be a parent, before that you have to be a person, right? You
right,
have to figure out who you are as a person. You have to uncover layers of yourself. You sort of have to go through a therapy, right, with yourself.
right, right.
And I think only once, when you understand yourself and you've gotten to know yourself, then you can even begin to relate to your spouse and to your children, right? I
Correct.
find a lot of people in this world, because of the unawareness, they just get into marriage, they just get into parenting, and they're
Right,
just reacting, right? They're not
right,
understanding and learning. It's all reflex action, right?
right.
If you study
It's
sort of,
reactive,
it's
reactive.
reactive. And it's no fault on that. You can't sort of depict it to behavior. If you look at behavioral and learning sciences,
Right.
If you a reflex is just a reaction to the environment, right? So say if
Exactly.
a piece of dirt comes and hits your eye blinks, it's just
Right.
reacting to dirt, right?
Right.
No
Right.
amount of theory or logic will say, hey, you're just a piece of dirt. I don't have to blink. That's just a
Right.
reaction to something
Right.
physical. So when parents react to kids, it's nothing to do with their behavior. It's just a reaction, right? So
Right.
you have to uncover layers of yourself. And that's what I
Right.
try to do every day, right? I've got a mantra. It's actually on my bathroom mirror. You know how when you write on the mirror and the steam doesn't let your writing go
Right.
away.
Yeah.
And I wrote something that said, "As you are, so shall they be." Because kids learn from modeling, right?
Right.
I analyze a
Very
lot of
true.
my behaviors, and I notice similarities with my parents that they haven't told me, but I've just
Mhm.
absorbed from them, right? Just by unconscious modeling. And I know my kids are doing the same thing. I see it in them. So I'm
Correct.
always trying to sort of, understand where them coming from, where I'm coming from. And, I have to work in myself first if I have to, get my kids going
Expect
to
better from them.
where I want them to be, right?
Right.
That's my basic philosophy with them.
Very nice. Very nice. And it's definitely, I think, as you put it, monkey see, monkey do, is what happens, right? It's not what you tell them. They're learning from everything that you do, and as sponges as they are, they're always. I think we are always learning from everything that we encounter, and we are in some way a reflection of people around us. So from all of that being said, you're absolutely correct. So. I think that's beautifully put with that quote. Now, that being said, what do you then see the ideal brown dad as?
The ideal brother, in what capacity would you say?
In this whole capacity of our entire message that we have at the Brown Dad is around patriarchy to partnership. Now, that being said, what do you see the ideal Brown Dad as, aside from this dynamic of you being the best version of yourself? What do you then what do you see the ideal complete Brown Dad as?
I don't know if I would say there's an ideal,
Mhm.
because for me, like, perfection is something to strive towards, but you can never achieve it, right? And
Definitely.
it's good. It's good to have that as a sort of a
Goalpost.
measurement stick, yeah, so that
Yeah.
you have something to strive towards.
Mhm.
But I would sort of say be the very best dad that you can be, right? And forget brown dad, yellow dad, whichever color dad, right? Like, I also
Right.
find that if you put sort of like a division to something, it takes away from the experience of something also, right? So
Right.
like if I said, think about a guitar,
Right.
it's very different, the image in your head, if I say, think about a red guitar, right? Like the
Red
first
electric.
one, think about a guitar, the options are open. There's something beautiful about that experience, right? You can choose
Right.
to be it in any capacity.
Right.
So I would say, focus on being the very best dad that you can be, and
Definitely.
you have to decide for yourself what that is. And again, getting back to uncovering layers of yourself, I think the essential problem is, and finding this out today, is a lot of the education is based on the blind leading the blind. There's a lot of
Right.
superstitions, a lot of beliefs, a
Right.
lot of our worldviews that
Right.
come from our parents, from our environment, from the friends, from our religion, from the politics,
Right.
government, from the places we grew up in. I can look at things that Dubai had, that Canada has, that India has, etc.
Mhm.
Because of being in a location, it'll affect your worldview, right? I
Right.
think the first thing you have to do is strip all the beliefs and the worldviews that you have, and
Right.
try to find beliefs and worldviews that you actually agree with. And that's
Right.
very hard to do because you actually have to look inside of yourself. And then how do you know it's truly something that you want, right? Because even
Right.
at some levels, it's from somewhere or someone, even if it's,
Right.
something that you're changing to something else, it's come from somewhere. It's still an
Right.
influence. So I
Right.
think try to, find that belief that's as authentic to what you consider, you
Right.
to be, right? And once you have that baseline, and this baseline will form, habits. These habits will form, characteristics. And then this will, get you to design the ideal dad that you want to be, the ideal spouse that you want to be, right? The ideal career person that you want to be.
Right.
I think
Right.
that's the template for it all.
Definitely. Definitely. And that's very, very, very beautifully put. because that's definitely a good guide, a set of guide rules for people to then follow and to then get to that ultimate stage of where it is that you want to be. Thank you for that lovely piece of insight. Now,
Yeah, and it's a moving
you,
target also, right? Like, I mean, you
yeah,
can, like you're saying, your state of ideal, but then,
right,
as you grow, then you'll see the horizon extend. And then when you
right,
reach that new horizon, you keep seeing it extend, right? So
right.
it's forever evolving. That's the fun of it too.
Right, definitely, definitely. And I mean, you as a person definitely have evolved. As you said, you went into music, doing jazz music, still being a part of your life, and now you've then obviously diversified into learning journalism, diversifying into finance, and then obviously doing these podcasts. Now you are also a published author, Croydon, right?
Self-published.
Self-published is perfectly fine. What is the name of your book? Would you like to tell our viewers?
Sure, it's called All the Best in Your Life.
Right. And what is the book about?
You know what? It's just a set of principles that I laid out. There's about 10 different principles.
Hmm.
And each of them just again has to do with the reflecting. So, it's taking the time to reflect on certain things that
Right.
we don't normally think about, right? And I
Hmm.
cover sort of, different areas, the
Hmm.
classic one being having a morning routine.
Hmm.
Everyone talks about, a morning routine. And recently, Robin Sharma in his book
Right.
5 Club, he's highlighted, an effective morning routine. And
Right.
that's really important because it sets yourself up for the day. But I wanted to have a different spin on it. So I said, listen, your morning routine doesn't have to be, waking up, going to the gym, or, reading a set of books or meditating. I mean, those are good
Right.
things. But if you're not
Right.
in that, or if you want to do something different, you can, right?
Right.
If you don't have time for that, because I remember, when the kids were really young, there's
Right.
no time for a morning routine. You're sleeping in the wee hours after, they've
Right.
been fed, and they're the ones waking you up in the morning. So actually,
Right.
I made that my morning routine, waking up with the kids. And
Right.
the stuff I might want to do, which is meditate or read or exercise,
Right.
I would push back later. The other
Right.
thing I said is, why does it have to be in the morning? You can do it in the afternoon. You can do it
Right.
before sleeping, right? You can shift
Right.
the routine as long as you have a routine for the day.
Right.
So I cover different things like that. Another chapter is dedicated to the mind, right? Like, what do you
Right.
let into your mind? We're so concerned about, the food we put into our body, or
Right.
the company that we keep, etc. We really
Right.
don't think about, our diet for the mind, and
Right.
that's really important because what enters your mind is how you're gonna, become in reality, right? So I
Definitely.
talk a little bit about that too.
Definitely. Definitely. Wonderful. Wonderful. And where would our readers find your book if they were looking for it?
It's on Amazon, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. We'll have probably have a link on the in the in the description in the bottom.
Awesome, thanks, appreciate it.
Now, Croydon, just switching gears a little bit, we were talking about obviously your journey, with this whole piece about being an immigrant, and then being an immigrant from a different country, being an immigrant in Canada itself to a different province, and having this entire journey as a dad, and obviously you shared such lovely insights about your relationship with your dad, your relationship with your mom, how that has impacted you as a dad as well. Are there any last words of wisdom that you'd like to leave our viewers? Any quotes or anything? We call this section the pearls of wisdom section, and I'd like to get your pearls of wisdom for our viewers.
Some of my pearls are still hidden in the ocean, and I'm trying to find them out for myself. But I would say a lot of time is spent in school, learning subjects that aren't going to be practical in real life.
Right,
It's been said that we don't get an owner's manual for ourselves when we're born, and
right,
and by the time you pass, you're lucky to have even found out, what it means to be human.
right,
I think Wayne Dyer talks about, instead of being human being, you're
right,
sort of being human, right? We're
right,
spiritual entities having a human experience, right?
right,
um, so I would say, don't get caught up in the ego, don't get caught up in a lot of the flash and the distractions that are out there. I would say, again, do therapy on yourselves, strip yourself down, take time just to reflect, to get to know who you are. In these pandemic times, we're not allowed to go outside, but you're
right,
allowed to go inside, and that's amazing. A lot of healing has happened, a lot of sort of novel ideas have come, just because people were able to sit back, relax. And even for me, like the book came out because, I
Yeah.
was at home. Otherwise,
Right.
when or if ever it would have come out, right? I had the
Right.
time, the
Right.
ability to do that. So I would tell
Right.
people, no matter what stage of life you are, no matter what, sort of walk of life, get to know who the real authentic you is. A lot of
Right.
it is, blind leading the blind, and
Right.
really take the time to meditate and see who you are, because you are unique and you are really different from, who your family is, who your kids
Right.
are, who your friends are, who your work culture is,
Right.
who, the citizenship, stamp that is on your passport, right? All of those things
Right.
define you, right? So
Right.
try to find that unique person that's you.
Find your uniqueness and live it.
Yeah, live it. I mean, that's what we're here for, right? Is
Yeah.
to
Definitely.
enjoy life and be who we are.
Definitely. Definitely. Carden, I do want to thank you. I think it's been a wonderfully insightful interview. You've taken us on this lovely journey of everything that is to do with so many existential questions. And I'm sure our readers are, sorry, our viewers are more than, anxious to get their hands on your lovely book through Amazon and maybe even see some of the jazz music that you've put out. I'm sure you might get a few followers on your podcast as well through this. Uh, Now, that being said, Corden, I do want to thank you once again from the Brown Dad, the entire team, for being a part of this vision and for empowering every dad, one dad at a time, all over the place. Have
Thanks
a
very
lovely.
much. And I'm really honored to be on your podcast. And, once again, I respect the movement that you're doing because it's important, right?
Right,
A lot of the time, the the flash is on, the flashlight is on, the women and, things like
right,
that, with pregnancy, childbirth, bringing up kids. But
right.
dads need that too, right? I think both
Right.
sides need it equally because they go through different experiences.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you for that.
definitely. Thank you very much, Gordon, for for this lovely interview, and for volunteering your time. Most importantly, for the Brown Dad. Have a lovely evening. Good day, folks.